Joanna. It's so nice
Hello, thanks for
to meet
having
you.
me.
Of course, thank you for coming on. We're so excited to meet with you today and ask you some questions about your writing process and your books. So, as you can see, we have with us today Joanna Ruth Meyer. She is the wonderfully talented author of multiple novels, including Echo North, Into the Heartless Wood, and most recently, Wind Daughter. Joanna, thank you for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
We're so excited just that you're here and that you have time to be with us and that we get to share this interview with the world and for people to get to know your heart more. So before diving into those questions, we want to just share a few fun facts so our viewers can get to know you a little bit more before the questions. So according to Joanna, she is the least popular of the Meyer authors, though we think she's the kindest. She melts in weather over 79 degrees and lives in Arizona, so that's hard.
I can relate to that.
Yeah, I always run cold, so I don't relate as much, but my heart goes out to you both. She is obsessed with loose leaf tea and cats, and she has a degree in piano performance.
Wow.
It's so cool. So, and with that, Joanna, you're also a piano teacher too.
I am indeed.
Just so cool. So cool. So we're going to just jump into the first question. And the first question is, was the first story you ever wrote the first story you published?
Absolutely not. So the first story I ever wrote was I was 7 years old and I never finished it. So I don't know if that one actually counts. My first like technical novel that I finished was in 2005. And my debut, Beneath the Haunting Sea, was the third novel I ever wrote. I wrote it in 2006 for NaNoWriMo. And I revised it a lot of times. I wrote other books in between the revisions, but that ended up being my debut. So my third book was my debut, but I had written like at least 6 books by the time it came out.
Do you still have the story from when you were 7?
I do. I illustrated it very badly. It's in a box somewhere. It was about mystery solvers. I was really into reading like Bobbsey twins and stuff when I was a kid. And there's a string of pet nappings around the neighborhood. And the villain was a guy in a gorilla suit. And I never finished it, you know, true to form.
That's so cute. I love that you have that memory.
That's amazing. I would definitely read that for sure if you ever published it.
I'd have to finish it and, you know, I don't know.
That's so cute. Well, Alyssa talks very, very highly of your novels, most especially Echo North and Wind Daughter. She's like, Jordan, these are the best books I've ever written. I mean, ever read. And so I know she's super excited to talk to you today, as am I. I can't wait to read your books as well. They're on my to be read stack. But I'm curious, what inspired you to write Echo North and Wind Daughter?
That's a great question. So Echo North actually started as a dream I had. I had this random dream of a girl. She was riding a reindeer and she was being chased by wolves across a snowy landscape. And I always put in, this is before Frozen came out. So my brain came up with this all by itself. So I wrote that down. Sometimes books begin with vivid images like that. And I was kind of like brainstorming because sometimes I'm like, I want to write a story and I don't know what it is. So it's kind of brainstorming a little bit. And I realized that it wanted to be an East of the Sun and West of the Moon retelling. And for those who don't know, East of the Sun and West of the Moon, I always describe it as Beauty and the Beast with a quest at the end. So it started with that. And there was this short story contest that was put on by Writer's Digest. And I was always trying many things in my pre-published days to, you know, get myself out there. And I had written a short story. I can't remember years because my mind does not like retain numbers. I don't like numbers. I always joke that musicians only have to count to 4, so like I'm good there. But so I think it was in like 2009, I had gotten like an honorable mention for a short story in that same contest. And so I wanted to do again and see if I could do better. The kicker is, though, it had to be under 10,000 words. So the first version of Echo North I attempted to write was a 10,000 word short story. And I kind of wrote it in like bits and sections. And I got to 10,000 words and I wasn't like anywhere close to like having it be a whole story. So I put it aside and then I was like, I'm pretty sure this probably needs to be an actual book, like not a short story. And so I wrote the first book version of it for NaNoWriMo 2014. And then it went through, I think I had gone through 3 drafts by the time Haunting Sea was published. And then Echo North became my option novel for that.
That's fascinating. Like I can't imagine it being a 10,000 word short story just because it's just so like meaty. There's so much to it.
Yeah,
I-
that was never good. That was never going to work. I don't know what I was thinking.
no,
And
it's
I
great. I'm
love
so glad you decided to stick with it and make it a full-length novel because it's just it's so good. I don't know. I don't really have words to describe how much I enjoyed this novel, except that it was just it was so good.
and I love that
I
image
was
too that you had, the dream of a girl riding on a reindeer. Were you the one on the reindeer? Or was it just a random girl?
just a random girl. Like my dreams, my dreams are weird. Like sometimes it's like me, and sometimes it's like not. Like sometimes I'm watching like a weird little movie that my brain invented in my sleep, you know? And it's funny, like the things that stick with you and the things that don't, because most of my dreams I forget immediately. But yeah, Echo North was, I don't know, it went on quite a journey because when I wrote the first draft, I was like, I don't know. I was like, this is kind of dumb or whatever. But my critique partner at the time liked it a lot. And my books have started like growing in revisions. So I used to be like a really long like first drafter, and I would have to cut thousands and thousands of words as I was revising. But like over the last few years, I've been drafting small and like expanding like with each revision. And Echo is one of those ones. Um, I won't talk spoilers, but the original ending of Echo North is not what it ended up being. And I think it was in draft 3, I realized it needed another layer at the end. And so that was one of the things that I put in there, which was exciting and fun. And then you asked about Wind Daughter too, right?
Yes.
So Wind Daughter is a companion novel to Echo North. It like flirts with sequel territory, but it's not technically a sequel because it follows a different character. But I'd written Beneath the Haunting Sea, and I was working on a companion novel for that. And I was like, companion novels are hard. I'm like, never doing this again. And I was like, good thing Echo North is definitely a standalone, and like there will never be any other stories like in that world. And then my immediate next thought was like, but if it did have a companion novel, it would be about the North Wind's daughter. And so like I had that like kind of concept rattling around for a while. And I knew it would be about her and about her like kind of regaining her father's magic. But that's all there was to it for a while. And it wasn't until I realized that the main character, whose name is Satu, was a highly sensitive person, that I realized there was an actual story there. So I had to find out more about her before I could write her story, which makes sense. But
Well, I'm so glad you chose to write both because Wind Daughter was an exceptional sequel or not sequel to Echo North. So both are brilliantly done. So along the same vein of just writing in general, how long does it usually take you to draft a novel?
um, so like I used to have like a very like cut and dry answer for that question, but it's changed over time with motherhood and like getting old. So I used to be like a very fast drafter. I did NaNoWriMo like a ton of times in my pre-husband, very single days. And so I was like, get the words out as fast as possible. And I still kind of like tend towards that. But I haven't like drafted a novel from scratch in a while. The last one I wrote was Wind Daughter. And I drafted that like during the summer of 2020 when we were all stuck at home, and my son he like just turned 3, and it was not quite literally, but nearly literally 1,000,000,000 degrees outside. So we couldn't even like go outside because it was so hot. And so I like wrote it in like fits and starts, like while he was watching TV, which is not the ideal way to write a book. So I think like it took me like a couple months to get the first draft out there. But generally speaking, I lean towards the drafting quickly so you have something to work with. And I do, and I was like, I always outline, but this year I'm like, I'm not going to outline. So I don't always outline, but I prefer to outline because I like to know where I'm going, because I have the personality where I like to have lots of options, but too many options paralyze me. So if I don't make a plan, like I can't finish anything. So I prefer to plot, even though like it goes against my nature. And as I'm writing, I feel free to like throw out what I outlined if it doesn't feel right. But if I don't go in with a plan, I don't come out with anything really. Yeah, so generally speaking, I draft fairly quickly-ish, and the revising can take a really long time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, would you say
I think I lost track of the question there.
No, that's okay. It segues really well into the next question. Would you say that you're more of a plotter, or would you say you're kind of a mix of plotter, pantser, planster?
By nature, I'm a pantser. In practice, I'm usually mostly a plotter.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, if I get there and it doesn't feel right, I feel very free to travel in another direction. I'm like when I was writing Wind Daughter, I had like one thing plotted out, but I was like, there's more chemistry over here, so we're gonna go over here because that is more exciting and fun. So yeah, so a plotter with changes along the way.
Have you always felt that freedom to go with the wind, no pun intended, as you're writing? Or did that kind of time?
I don't know. Like I think like the more books I write, the more I feel free to like do what feels right, you know? Because yeah, sometimes I would try to like follow the outline, and it just was like not really working out that well. But even that said, like so I use Scrivener to write. And what I do usually before I write a book is I will have like a scene by scene outline. So I'll put like a little summary of what happens in like each note card. But even looking back at like my first drafts, I'll look at what I wrote on the note card, and then I'll look at the scene. I'm like, well, this isn't like even remotely similar. So like I always have to go back and like revise my outline like as I revise the book, because I like to keep track of everything. But so yes and no, I guess.
That's amazing. I mean, I really admire that because I'm definitely more of a, I think, pantster, planster maybe a little bit, but plotting's not my strong suit. So I love that you like kind of forced yourself to become a plotter, because it's definitely like I admire people who plot. I'm just like my brain doesn't work like that. So like I want to force myself to do it. So that's great. Maybe there's hope for me yet.
Yes, and like that said, I outline, but if I'm being entirely honest, sometimes I don't find the actual plot until like draft 2 or 3.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, that's, hey, I
Yeah.
mean, discovery writing, you know?
Yeah, I like atmospheric characters and like plot, I guess, if I must.
Like not that important. So what is your favorite part of the writing process?
That answer like changes, I think. I used to love drafting because it felt so free and like I'm getting all the words on the page. Um, but as I've like published like a number of books now, I go back to drafting and it's like terrible because the last thing I worked on was this like finished, very highly polished like thing, book. And now I'm back like, I don't remember how to write a book. This is terrible, like just absolutely dreadful. Um, but then revising is hard too. I think what I like best is like being like in the work zone of whatever phase of the novel I'm working on. Um, Not like in the middle of the book, but like in the middle of the project when like things are clicking and like you feel like things are coming together. Um, and oftentimes that'll happen when I'm working on like a draft two, which is what I'm doing right now. Because it's really exciting when you get past that like this is how the book is. It can never be changed. You have to like get past that mental hurdle. Um, and once you get past it and you're starting to make the changes and then you get into the groove of like the actual rewriting, that can be really satisfying because you're getting the book closer to what it's meant to be. So that can feel really, really, really satisfying.
Mm. What would you say is your favorite book that you've written? I know that's probably a hard question. It's like choosing what's your favorite child?
Yeah. Um, Probably like whatever I worked on the most recently. Um, but all of my books have very special places in my heart. Um, I still am like in love with Beneath the Haunting Sea, my debut. It was just, I don't know, I just really like that book. And I've listened to the audiobook of it like a couple of times and it makes me so happy because it feels like a movie a little bit. And it's just it just makes me really happy that that book exists because it's weird, but it's like came right out of my brain, and like I had a really long journey. So that one makes me really happy. Um, I love Into the Heartless Wood because there's just so much trees going on, and that one was really fun because it's like a dual POV first person type of a thing. Um, and I love Wind Daughter. I love the romance in it. It's really special to me because the main character is essentially me with magic, um, like exaggerated. I told my husband she was like a little bit exaggerated for me, and he's like, "Is she like exaggerated though? Like, really? Are you sure?" Um, and yeah, I'm in love with the book I have on submission right now. I'm head over heels for the book that I'm rewriting right now. So I am really bad at like choosing a favorite. So anytime anyone asks me a favorite, I give them like four answers. So there you go.
That's valid. I feel like that's only fitting. It's only right to do that. Put forward your heart in all of your stories. So of course you're going to find yourself loving all of them. Um,
Yeah.
so would you say that you relate to Satu the most then out of all your characters?
Probably like whether you mean to or not, like a piece of yourself is in all of your characters. Satu is definitely the most like me. I really relate strongly to Owen, who is the male main character in Into the Heartless Wood. Um, he is he's an INFP for like tender bleeding heart, like musical all the way. So I definitely relate to him a lot. Um, who else? When I'm like drawing a blank on like everything, every character I've ever written. But yeah, there's a piece of me in all of them. The main character of Beyond the Shadowed Earth was kind of really fun to write because she is like not like me. She's very like angry and bitter, and she's like gonna get stuff done, and it doesn't matter if she has to kill someone on the way to doing it. Um, but so that's like kind of like a fun exercise. But even in her, there's little bits of my heart. So but Satu is probably the most like me. Yeah.
Mm. One of my favorite questions to ask authors during these chats is who some of their favorite authors are, because everybody says something different. So who would you say some of your favorite authors are that have inspired your craft, or who you would recommend other people to read?
Anyone who's ever talked to me about books for like more than 5 minutes have heard me obsess about Megan Whalen Turner's Queen's Thief series. I read the first 3 in 2006 because that's all that existed now. But now the whole series is out, so you can binge them and you don't have to wait like 10 years between books. She was very slow, but she is like a master at plotting and like very subtle writing. Most of her books have these like just delicious twists that kind of slap you upside the head, but like not in like a manipulative way, and a like, oh my gosh kind of a way, And her characters, and she's just such a like a subtle, careful writer. Has probably my favorite romance of like general modern literature. And yes, so she's just amazing. Lately, like in the last year, I've been reading a bunch of Catherine Center novels. She writes, they're like sometimes they're shelved as women's fiction and sometimes they're shelved in romance. But they're kind of like rom-com dramas. Yeah. So it's like romantic drama comedy. And she just has like a really like wonderful, lovely way of looking at the world and like finding hope among tragedy. And yeah, so lots of feelings. And then I love all the classics, obviously, like Jane Austen and Tolkien and all that. And lots of other books too, but they've all fallen out of my head. So I cannot remember a single book that I've read. So yeah, those are probably the big ones.
Great. I love you mentioned Tolkien. I was waiting for him to pop up. I mean, all the other ones.
Yes, it's like yes, he goes without saying, so sometimes I forget to
No, that's totally fine. That's great. And so I think you already hinted a little bit about this, but I don't know if you're ready, or I don't know how much you've shared online, but what are you currently working on and how much can we know?
So I'm working on kind of like a pet project. Um, I have nothing like under contract right now, so I guess I could technically say as much or as little as I want to. Um, but I'm like 70,000 words into a rewrite of a Celtic fantasy thing. And I love it very much. It has like the slowest of all slow burns. And I'm not good at pitching it yet, but we've got like enemy nations going on, and it's like a bodyguard romance type of thing. And I first read it as YA, but now I'm like aging it up towards adult so I can be slower, kind of, because it's a very like it does have a plot, I think, but it's very character driven. So in this like rewrite, I'm trying to make it make sense and then like explore my world more, do more world building. And yeah, but I'm aiming for about 100K. So I'm getting close, and I'm getting to like my favorite section of the novel. So I just have to push through this like political plotty thing that I'm in right now. So that does not sound very exciting, but that's what I'm working on.
Sounds riveting. I'm excited.
Do you think we're going to see anything in the future about the same worlds you've already created? Like Wind Daughter is a companion novel to Echo North. Will we see something like that in the future?
I have some little short stories I wrote that go along with Wind Daughter and Echo North. So hopefully I'll be able to share those at some point soon. But other than that, probably not. I did do a little short story that's in the back of Into the Heartless Wood. So that was kind of fun, a little kind of mini mini sequel, little short story thing. But at the moment, I'm out into other worlds. So
That's exciting. We get to explore what those new worlds are.
I'm,
yep.
I'm so thrilled. I know I have all of your books except the beneath the no something shadowed earth.
Beyond the Shadowed Earth.
Beyond the Shattered Earth. So then I'll get to add more books to my collection of your beautiful writing. So I'm very excited. There's still two that I have that I haven't read yet that are on my TBR very, very high. So I'm gonna get to those, but so thrilled. But we do have one last question for you. And it's, is there anything else that you would like your readers to know about you, your writing, your heart?
I am just super thankful for all of my readers. If you ever ponder whether or not you should like message me and tell me you liked my book, please do that. It makes my day like a billion times brighter. If you want to live message me as you're reading, please do that. That's always the best too. I crave reactions. And yeah, it just means a lot to me when people reach out to me and let me know that they, have connected with my stories. And yeah, it's just, it's really interesting, as an author, the book belongs to you when you're working on it. And then when it's published, it doesn't really belong to you anymore. It belongs to the readers. So it's kind of fun to hear like, oh, how's Echo doing? Like, oh, yeah, I remember her, so that's just kind of neat. And yeah, I always say I have a lot of feelings that I don't know what to do with. So I try to put some of them into my book so I don't have to like worry about them anymore. So I both feel bad and delighted if my books make someone cry. I don't know if that makes me a terrible person. And yeah, I hope I'll just get to tell stories until, my fingers stop working. So it's a great privilege, and I just absolutely love doing it.
Oh, well, thank you, Joanna. It has been a privilege to talk to you. Thank you so much for sharing your afternoon with us.
Absolutely. And thanks again for having me and all the wonderful questions.
Of course, thank you again. And yeah, this was just so sweet. And we can't wait for everyone to take a listen to get to know your heart more and just get excited about your future projects too, because, there's just so many. I feel like an author's journey is never over. It's usually they write one book and that vigor is still there. They want to keep going. So it's so exciting to just see that and see how much you've already produced and now it's going to keep going. So it's so exciting. Yeah, this was wonderful and we look forward to just connecting in the future and just excited for you. So thank you again.
Absolutely. Hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank
Joanna,
you.
you too.
All
Bye.
right.